in pain, you can still, of course, when it's pathological pain, it's hard, but still to reframe pain is one of the, for example, the main missions of all the pain science educators right now. They say, well, pain is not an indicator of, not an perfect indicator of tissue damage, but what pain is a protective mechanism. So you can reframe a little bit, of course, the pain for, as you said, as a feedback, and then you have to think about the feedback and why your body is producing pain right now.
Hi, and welcome back to the Mindset and Performance Podcast. I'm Dris, a mindset and performance coach. I help athletes and young professionals with their career development. We work on a wide range of areas, from training to nutrition, but focus essentially on the mindset as it is the key to everything else. The whole idea behind this podcast is to deconstruct the habits that led people to their success, to learn from their experience and understand the psychology behind their actions and behavior, and of course, to know what kind of mindsets they have. Welcome to this week's conversation with Preilowski, and I hope I'm pronouncing it well again. Patrick is a qualified sports scientist through the German Sports University of Cologne. He has been involved in the research and application of fields like pain, neuro, and movement science. Patrick is also a sports scientist at fortheathlete.com, and I will put a link of this one later on, which is a multi-purpose platform that provides a team of experts for professional action sports athletes who would like to improve upon themselves. It also provides education and research for both athletes and athletic trainers, physiotherapists who are looking at developing their skills, and with Out of the Box, which is the same thing as fortheathlete.com, no confusion there, he teamed up with physiotherapists, nutritionists, and psychologists to support primarily those action sports athletes. Action sports as in mountain biking and snowboarding and stuff, sports like that. He has a passion for this kind of sport. That's why he created something where he can join passion and business in the same time. They also work with wakeboarders and trail runners, and he also works as a lecturer and consultant for several educational institutions. So during this conversation, we will talk about his beginnings as well as his philosophy and approach to his work. We will break down his approach as if you were a client coming to sign up for him and how you can use it. So if you are one of the athletes in the audience here, I highly recommend you to listen to this, because I'm sure not only you will learn from his experience, but you're probably gonna sign up for one of his consultation sessions. So Patrick is prepared in a variety of strength and conditioning topics, but he specializes in integrated sensory motor training as they relate to programming and individualizing sport-specific exercises. So enjoy the podcast, and if you have any questions, please reach out to both me and Patrick. Patrick, how do I pronounce your family name? Because that was hard for me to spell.
All right, it's Preilowski.
Preilowski, okay.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
And how do you introduce yourself normally to people?
I would just say I'm a sports scientist. That's the easiest way. Yeah.
Okay.
Very short, very brief.
What does it really involve? So sports scientist, for me, when I hear it, I hear somebody that using and involving science to improve somebody's sports capability and capacities in terms of performance.
Yeah, I would say this is the main picture a lot of people have. And I have to say, when you study sports science, you don't become 100% a scientist, I would say. Mainly when you do the sports science studies, you can go into the role of being a coach or a trainer as well. So you don't have to go into the research. But yeah, the first thing which comes to mind is mainly movement science and the science about training. But sports science is a big field and a very integrative
Very wide,
approach.
right?
Yeah, a lot of people who are going into the psychology part and a lot of people going into neuroscience. And so there's a lot of people who are digging deep. But I would say as a sports scientist, you try to look over the whole field of possibilities and not to dig deep or too deep to see the other pictures. I hope that makes sense. So you have neuroscientists, biomechanics is a very important part, but I would say that as a sports scientist, we are the guys who are looking out for all the holes and try to put them together.
Put them together as in preventing issues or as in improving in performance or
they are these are the main fields I would say as well. Like we call them injury prevention, but it's more like injury reduction and rehabilitation. But what I wanted to say is more like we try to have an overview of all the fields of science which are connected to the human body, kind of. Like you have not much nutrition in our field, I would say. Like I think we have one semester about nutrition. That's not much, but still we get some information from all the fields, but we are not really specialist in one field. After you're studying, you can maybe become a specialist in some area, but mainly we are more of I don't know the English word for it, but we call it eierlegende Milchsau. That's a guy who can do everything, but not very good. You know what I mean?
I see, like general, but not necessarily specific into something.
Yeah, exactly. I would say this is the main goal, but when you're going directly into research, of course, you are going into one field, or you're just doing your PhD. Of course, you're getting a specialist in one approach, in one field, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so which area on those areas that you listed are you specialized on? What are you as a sports scientist?
Yeah, I would say I worked with a bunch of people who pushed me slightly into one direction. So it depended a lot of, it depended on the people who came to me and approached me. And it started with very ambitious, or even some of them were professional action sports athletes. So it's not not the classical Olympic sports or the team sports. I was always interested for myself into mountain biking and nature sports and stuff like this. And these guys approached me as well. So the injuries and the problems they had, they formed my expertise, or I would say just the interest in specific injuries. So it was mainly knee injuries and shoulder injuries, but I would say that my main focus is on knee injuries, not as physiotherapists would approach the problem, but as secondary and I would call it secondary rehabilitation. So in Germany, I don't know if it's everywhere the same, but when you got injured, you go to the physiotherapist or the doctor first, and then hopefully you will get some physiotherapy, but it's not very long. You just have a few sessions, and after this you have to do it on your own, or you are looking for a trainer who will support you.
Do you speak in here specifically about athletes or anybody that got injured?
Mainly everybody, but for me it was very, let's say it was very quick that I understood that I can I can open up myself more to people who are intrinsically motivated, I would say. So this is the main clientele I have. They know what they want to do. They know where the goals are, but they have problems to go there. So yeah.
Are these guys mainly athletes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
or they have an athletic goal, let's say. Then when they don't make money out of the the sports, because when I tell you that, for example, wakeboarding or free skiing is not very supported, or not as supported as soccer, of course, there's not too much money involved, but still they are very ambitious to keep going, to make movies and all these kind of stuff. So they have let's say an athletic goal.
I see. So would people come to you when they have an issue or when they have a goal? Let's say they have a problem on their knee, for example, or when they have a goal. Okay, so everything is okay, but I have this ambition and it has been a little bit difficult maybe to reach it. Can you help me with it?
I would say I have a mix of both, and I see as more as a spectrum of having for example, pain or an injury, and performance. For me, it's not really the same thing, not the same approach, but it's on a spectrum. And I would say that you can say that people who are, I don't know how to put it into a summary, but mainly they are out of rehabilitation. They have a goal, but they know they are not at 100% because of their past injury. And this would be, the main clientele I work with. So it's not really the last 5% to be even better. So not this kind of approach. Yeah,
makes sense. So if you don't mind, could we go a little bit backward to what made you choose this field in the first place?
Sure.
To how far should we go? Are we going all the way to childhood, or are we going to just when you had to make choices when you were 17 and 18, which university we should do? Or you can choose where you want to go back, actually.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. I think it started somewhere in the childhood, but knowing what you want to do in life, I think it came a little bit later. So with 17, 18, I would say,
Somebody influenced that choice?
I think it was a lot of things were indirectly, or implicit. I started very early with judo, and I was doing a lot of sports in my childhood, and there I had the first connection to the sport university in Cologne, because there was the main training area for our sports. And then you don't have then you have the first contact of seeing people studying sports, and from outside it looks very nice to do sports and to do everything you like to do compared to other fields of study from school. So this is one of the first, I would say, the first roads or crossroads I took when I've seen, okay, you can study sports, because it's not really in the open field. It's not like a lot of people say, hey, you can study sports. Mainly in Germany, you would say, okay, you study sports, so you become a sports teacher or something else. So when you say you study sports science, you mainly have to explain what's behind that, and that it's more than becoming a sports teacher or a trainer, So, I would say when I was, I think 20 or you want to study, but maybe I just start with sports science because I was very intrinsically motivated for it. And when I was studying at this time, you could choose the main field or your expertise a little bit later. Now it's more you have to choose already before because of the bachelor and master. I did a diploma studying, so it was a little bit different. You can just study for, let's say, 3 years, was it? And then you can choose your expertise. So this was a little bit better, I would say, for me, because I wasn't sure what to do with it afterwards. So in between studying, a lot of people are saying, yeah, you could study another field like mathematics or English and become a teacher. So you will have a proper job. And
I didn't know it was perceived like that in Germany.
Yeah, it is. It is. Or maybe in my bubble, but that's what I'm getting out of the conversations you have. You know, the Friday evenings. What do you do? Yeah, I'm a sports scientist. They're like, oh, wow, what do you do with it? And it's still like this, I would say, because in Germany, you're just having two images of it, like becoming a coach, but you can become a coach otherwise. You don't have to study for it, or you become a sports teacher. So I would say these are the main personas you see behind this studying. Yeah.
I see. And then, so what about all these people that work in high-level sports, like, I don't know, in Olympics and you know, in labs and research and all that? Like, it's not so common. There's not so many of them. That's what you mean. Like, it's very rare.
When you go into the Sports University of Cologne, of course, there are some sports scientists, and they're in the institutions. But when you see or when you look into the big research papers, it's mainly, there aren't many sports scientists present. I would say they are more like specialists, like neuroscientists and biologists and doctors and guys with a medical background. So I would say that there's a missing image of a sports scientist. They are not too rare, I would say, but like you said, in Olympics or at the high peak of sports performance, there are a lot of people who just came out of the sports and they did some training. How do you call it?
They followed some kind of education afterwards, you mean, or some training?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not studying sports science, but there are a lot of educational approaches to becoming a coach. So what you see, for example, in soccer and in big sports, you see that mainly an ex-player is becoming a coach, for example. And then, of course, there are some sports scientists, but still, I would say this is the main approach of becoming a coach. Yeah.
But what made you so different then in that case? Like, I'm interested in also on your personality and character. Like, while other people would have been a little bit skeptical about this kind of studies, you instead thought that it was something good and that you want to pursue it. What was that? Was that curiosity or was it something else?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I thought because there isn't an image of being a sports scientist, and in the institutions we have at the university, you have, I would say, not a lot of possibilities to find a role model, I would say. So you have some people who are very interesting, doing their own stuff in the research field and having a company at the side. And there are some who are very, who can be very inspiring, but you have to find these people, I would say. Or maybe it was just a good connection I had with 2 or 3 professors at the university, and they showed me that there's a field for sports scientists. And after I studied it, this picture became even clearer, that you have a lot of expertise, a lot of specialists in a lot of fields, but the integrative approach is sometimes not very used. And I would say that the sports scientist can be the guy who put all the strings together, you know?
Yeah, and connect all the dots.
Yeah. So not knowing the details of one field, but knowing that maybe going into just one field and digging a deep hole is maybe a too reductionist approach, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a mediator between specialists, I would say. So this is a motivation, and this is still my motivation to say, yeah, I'm a scientist, and I studied it, and maybe that's a small difference.
Did you have support from your parents when it comes to making that choice for a sports scientist?
Yeah, definitely. My parents were always like, do what you want. It just suits you. And of course, when you came out of a sports and you lived your sport, it just made sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you have a role model in your childhood, like you were looking up to, or childhood or teenage time, or when you were pursuing this education, somebody that you looked up to?
Yeah, I would say so, but not in the periphery, so not in the direct field. It's funny when you have the time of the internet, you can have a role model on the other side of the world, I would say.
For sure.
And so there were a few books who inspired me to keep going, I would say. But these role models don't know about me. So it's not a mentor I was talking to every week or something. Yeah. So.
So would you mind telling us about the name of the books, for example?
Oh yeah, sure. I would say, well, firstly, it's hard to find just one book or making a top 3 list. This would be hard.
I guess you have been reading a lot.
Yeah, not too much, but when time is left or I have some spare time, I try to go and dig deep into a book. But I would say that the main work would be from Preilowski. I don't know if you know him. He's a biologist, and he's writing very nice books like Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers and other books. And he has a very nice lecture series on YouTube. You can just watch them. I think it's 21 lectures or something, and it's really, really interesting. Very, very nice topics, and this was very motivating for me.
It sounds definitely very interesting. I never came across that author or that scientist, but I would be very curious to know who that is. And I will share the links on the podcast show for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You just have to Google the lectures on YouTube, and that's a very nice summary of his books. And I like his approach, and he's a very, very knowledgeable person and very humble. And this is a very nice mix, I would say.
So I was just going to ask you, what are the top skills that you picked up from him? And then you just said these two things. So I believe you're knowledgeable and humble at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's I would say it's a very nice mix. And I'm always looking up to people who are very good in communicating science. So he's just crazy good in communication, and it's a very good approach of doing some change management, because a lot of people are saying, no, this is right and this is wrong. And I would say that it's a very tough way to change people. And he and some other scientists are very good in communication and talking to people about very, very hard topics. They are very complex, very complicated as well. And he's just breaking it down so easily. So this is, I would always say, a good mix of becoming a role model of mine.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two questions coming in my mind right now. I don't know which one I should start with. Like, I want to ask you about what you have built for the Athletecom, because I saw it on your LinkedIn. But I also want to ask you about, like, if I'm a typical one of your clients and I come across you for the first time and I book an appointment with you, how would you start? Like, what is the first steps? The reason behind this question is, I work with athletes as well, and there might be some of them that'll be interested in working with you. And because sometimes, as you said, sports scientist is a little bit broad, but in the same time, a little bit abstract for some people to grasp, it would be good to have to tell them specifically what will you do. So, for example, mine, when my clients come in to me the first time, we start first with an assessment of performance on the psychological level, looking at the blind spots and all that stuff, and then from there we go to looking at creating goals and then working on strategies on achieving this goal. So, like, this is like, let's say, quickly the three main steps that I go through. So for you, before maybe talking about for the athlete.com, what is it that you do with them? Like, I'm coming to you, knocking in your door, come into your office or wherever you practice, and then what would you start with?
Oh yeah, sounds good. I would say it's pretty similar, but I'm not very good, or let's say my main field isn't in the psychology, but still. I would say when we work with humans, psychology is always a big part of it. So I would say that I try to emphasize just the main points, which could be a little bit different. But I would say the main point or the main goal I'm going for is to listen first. So I'm just listening, doing not a lot of assessments, especially not a lot of physiological assessments, because it has shown that a lot of these assessments aren't really helpful in the end. But I'm taking my time to listen to them. What's the problem? Where they want to go, and listen even more, because a lot of people, or I was like this, and I'm still sometimes like this. It's easy to put your own goals onto some athlete, because we as a human being have, of course, some biases as well. So I try to be as objective as possible, and then we work on goal settings, but mainly I would say that we are staying in the microcycle, like in a very short term first, so that he will have some quick wins, checking out his schedule, especially because I have mainly athletes who are traveling a lot and being just possible. You said office or gym. I don't have a gym, so I'm just working remotely with them, or when I have a wakeboard or something, and we are just at the spot where he trains usually. So I would say that it's approach of finding a goal which suits their lifestyles, because mainly you say, okay, you have to train 2 times or 3 times a week, but I'm a big fan of implementing, I call them movement snacks, like short, quick approaches of having a chance to move.
Did you come up with this
your
word?
Body. No, I think I'm looking for. I think it was Ben Cormack. He's an interesting guy from the UK. I think he called it movement snack. Yeah, and I'm using it even in my template now. So I have a gym session, a snack session, and a travel session, for example, for the people.
Excellent.
And it depends on where they are. So they are in the off season. Of course, they have more gym sessions, but I'm a big fan of the specific approach. So I really like to let them train where they have fun and being very close to their sports. So it makes sense for me to have the emphasis on programming them some warm-up in just for their main sessions, for their sport-specific sessions. And it's not as much strength and conditioning in the classic approach, I would say. So not too much gym time.
Excellent. And so do you apply all that through fortheathletes.com, or perhaps actually it's better if you explain to the audience what is fortheathlete.com exactly?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, this is this is my little company we work with. So it's mainly the homepage which connects all the dots of the things we do with a lot of colleagues together. So mainly you can find there the possibility to train with me, or I train with you, or we train together, I would even say, remotely mainly. But there's another part of it which focuses on the education. And what we do there is we try to implement some blended online and offline educational videos and summaries of books and research papers for trainers, for physiotherapists who don't have too much time to go on a weekend seminar or something. So they have almost like the training, remote possibility to learn new stuff or to even revise old stuff. Yeah.
Excellent. And then, so when did you founded this company?
I think I'm now in the fifth year now.
Fifth year.
So 5 years ago.
How has it been so far?
Oh wow, up and downs, but very. It's just a lot of fun, I would say. It started with the training mainly. So for me, it was, I would say, the one-on-one training, and I had some teams in the beginning. So I was just I would just define myself back in the day as an athletic trainer or a strength and conditioning coach. Some teams came up to me, even some ball sports like volleyball and some soccer teams, and I programmed an off-season strength and conditioning program for them, and it was, as always in the beginning, it was very fuzzy, but still you wanted to try everything. And there it was getting clearer that I'm niching down because of some people who approached me because I'm more into sports which are, let's say, a little bit more about how it looks and what you can do versus being quick and being fast and being leaner. And so it came as a second nature to me that it's more about action sports. And this is where it for the athlete becomes or became, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years, or let's say 3 years, it became the niche of focusing the action sport athletes or the ambitioned traveling athletes, I would say.
How satisfied are you from the achievements you made so far? I believe that when we start a company, we wear different hats, right? Like we are not only the specialized coach, let's say, or sports scientist or a therapist, but we do have to wear hats of, I don't know, business owner, strategist, marketing guy, PR person. You know it, right?
Oh yeah.
So when you know, maybe you did already this evaluation by the end of 2018, looking back at what you achieved and everything, and looking at your objectives for the future, etc. But if you were gonna put a number on it, like 1 to 10, 10 being very satisfied from your achievements so far, and 1 being not satisfied at all, where would you place yourself in here?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I did it in the end of 2018, and it's always helpful to revise everything. But I would say I'm not always. It's not very easy for me to be satisfied, especially when it comes to business. So I would go for a nice 6.5, maybe, or a 7, because these topics you just mentioned, I don't know how you managed them, but for me it was a big eye opener to know that, okay, I'm not just a trainer, so I have to make sure that people know where they find me, and all these little stuff, all these little very important topics, which you can just summarize into the entrepreneurship, or how do you call it today? So it was very tough, and I would even say that I realized it, but to apply it, it takes a lot of time for me to find the perfect approach. And this is one of the main problems. You always want to find the perfect approach, and it takes too much time to.
And it's
to
always
find
evolving anyway. From my experience,
Yeah,
it's always
exactly.
evolving. Like you find an approach, but there's different clients and different environments, and you always have to improve it and change it somehow. Don't you
That's
think?
true. Yeah, I don't know how you manage it, but for me, a very big insight is just going for it and not finding the perfect approach and then to start. But as you said, it's evolving anyways. And for me, it was the biggest and hardest lesson to go for the I don't know if it's the right one, but the Pareto principle, 80-20, and not finding the 100 because there is no 100%. And yeah, it's like sitting in the cellar and writing something down, but no one knows about it because you're waiting for the 100%. And yeah, it's still sometimes like this, especially when it comes to the educational part. This is what I'm looking for right now for people who are interested to become a part of it, to mediate this process, to be. So you have. I think it's easier to have a small team where one is the designer and knowing all the detail, and the other one is the guy who says, or the woman who says, "All right, we have to do it. Let's go. There's another project coming up," and it's really tough, as you said, to wear all the hats on your own. So, do you have an insight which can help there, or how do you?
I would share the
Manage
same
it?
opinion as you when it comes. First of all, in the beginning, I wear all the hats, but I must say that I had a little bit of a shortcut when it comes to that because I come from a business background. I used to work as in marketing and advertising before, so I knew how to lead clients to
Perfect.
me. So I just had to apply that to when I did my career change. But at some point, you can't, and I didn't want to be wearing all the hats. So I looked at how I can optimize my time and focus on what I like to do and what I know to do even more. And then I started working with the interns and working with remote assistants abroad in different countries, and build collaborations with people that would work with for some time, and then they will sign off for just small missions. And right now I do have two people that are say more or less permanent, or
Okay,
working
cool.
in regular basis, and that's it for now. But like for growth purposes, if you want more and more and more, you definitely need to build that team.
Yeah.
But like it's like the chicken and the egg. First bring in the money in to be able to pay these people, or first bring these people to bring the money in so you can
Yeah,
pay
that's
them, or
true.
something like
That's
that.
true.
It's always a little bit tricky, and
Yeah, it
so
is.
my input around that is just to keep on doing what we have to do, and with relentless focus, and creating a service and a product that is really with good value. It's easily shareable, easily talked about, and that's actually the main, the one that brings in the clients and helps with the growth. So one of the mistakes I did in the beginning was that I focused so much only on the online exposure, because as I said, like I was in marketing before, and I forgot to work on my network and my relationships and do the PR thing. So I was just behind the screen, building click funnels, building presence online and so on. But one of the most important things was actually to go out there and talk and speak about what you do. Till one day I met the guy that does my job for Kelly Slater and Stephanie Gilmore, and he was around 50 plus years old. I met him by coincidence in a surf competition, international one, and then he had the bracelet coach in it. And I was like, yeah, hey, how are you? What do you do? And then he told me what he does, and I was okay. Oh my God, I want to be you in a couple of years. And then he gave me that input. He told me like, yes, I have an online presence, and it's important to have it, because then when people will check you up, they will find out that you're legit somehow. But it's how he got his clients and where he were, the position where he was at. It was thanks to him being out there, exposing himself physically, talking, joining conferences and other places. and then he outsourced everything that he had to do before, which is the online or the admin or the marketing side, to, like I said, interns or employees that would back him up with that side while he's out there. And that's what I started doing a couple of years ago, and it has been effective so far. Always work in progress, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, definitely. When you're looking sometimes in the business books, the you go to Amazon or Goodreads and check out the state-of-the-art business books. It's mainly the main message, isn't it? To delegate and to find your purpose and being, look for quality output and give others the chance to help while you're focusing on the mission, isn't it? Yeah. So
okay,
interesting.
So what are the let's say like the skills, or say the mental skills, since we're about mindset and performance here, let's look at the mindset and the mental skills that you employed during all this time while building your business and growing it. What are the tools or the qualities that you think you have and that you can share with the audience that could benefit from them, learn from them as well?
Okay, that's a good question. I hope I have them, or I'm still searching for them. But I would say that, of course, as it comes down to training, I sometimes even preach that there isn't really the holy grail in a training approach, or there isn't the perfect programming. But what we know is that you have to be consistent in everything you do. So some trainers are coming up and ask me, should I do this exercise? Or what do you think about this exercise? And what's about this programming? And I always say, or mainly say, that when you see the research, it says you just have to do it for at least 6 weeks and do it consistently. And then you can change and tweak something. And I would say it was the same approach when it comes to business, that I just, as I said before, it was hard for me to go for not the 100%, but still to be consistent. And I would even say that I'm still struggling with this part, to be consistent when it comes to output, to social media, for example, because it's a hard mix to be, I would say now, just let's call it real life, doing the business you day from Monday to Friday, and then being consistent in showing people what you're doing. So I'm really bad at it, but I'm pretty sure it's a very important part, because as you said, the homepage, of course, is very important, but I would say it's just not just, but a very important business card. But knowing that you have to give a little bit more output, a little bit more content to people so that they understand what you are standing for is very important. And this is, I would say, the biggest lesson. And maybe coming back to your question, the mindset you need to have. There are a lot of glitter and holy grails and claims on the right and on the left side of your road. But I would say it's just about keep going and thinking about the big mission. What do you want to have as an outcome? What is your main goal, and how you can help people without being too perfectionist? Because it's really hard to help people to sit here in the office and just thinking about the 100% instead of thinking, all right, there are a lot of wakeboarders out there who had an ACL injury. How can I help them with information? So it's a very hard balance to find, I think, still to this day. But this is a very important mindset you need to consider. Yeah.
Do you know where you acquired it from, that mindset? Or these qualities as in all?
I think I've heard it from different corners, but There's a guy, not a guy, but a very big person, I would even say. He's called Brendan Burkhardt. Do you know him?
No. Is he German?
No, he's I think from the US. He's like the typical business coach, I would say, but he's a very, I think, nice guy. He wrote, how is it called? High Performance Habits or something like this. I don't know.
Okay.
I have to look for it. But it's a very nice book, and he's giving a lot of content for free, and it just made sense to me to see and to learn from him and his approaches. He always says, concentrate on prolific quality output. Don't get stuck in too much detail. And it felt right for me because I knew that this is one of my problems, to stick to the plan, to pursue the 100%. But
and stay consistent
yeah, exactly. And even when you ask coaches here, or we have some friends who are psychologists, and my wife is a psychologist, and you ask, okay, where's the problem here? And of course you want to do something great, but I think it's a very big break for a lot of people to have the gray zone, not the black and white. And it's always the same. The analogy works for the training area as well, because a lot of people think in black and white. It's very hard to educate them to just train consistently and maybe just at 60 or 70%, and being easy, having some movement snacks in between, because it's really hard for people to maybe, this is my point of view, to learn this habit when it's grayish, when it's very contrasted, white and black. They are like, all right, I can do this, and that's a plan I can go for. But the gray part is very, very tough for people to grasp, I would say. Yeah.
Very interesting points. Very interesting indeed. So what I'm picking up here from, if I want to summarize, like deconstruct, like how you think and what put you to where you are at right now, is you blended a little bit of from the beginning. So it's a blend of curiosity and keep on going, pursuing those studies that you wanted to study. The sports science, you were curious about it, even though you heard people maybe being a little bit skeptical about the type of education you'd be going for. You ignored that talk and those conversations, didn't let it influence you, and after pursuing this education, you started practicing, and practicing started. You created a company where you had to wear different hats, and you stayed consistent, but also knowledgeable, informed by reading books, looking for information here and there. You mentioned watching videos from some guy that I'd like to ask you to send me the link afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
And you equipped yourself with consistency and then focus and determination, and being also curious, I guess. So this sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong or if I missed something, but this sounds to me a little bit like a formula that could be beneficial to anyone who wants to pursue whether business or sports or anything. Is that correct?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, that's a good summary, I would say. Yeah, thanks. That's nice to hear it from someone else.
That's good. That's good. Like the thing is, what I try to do with my clients sometimes is that when they tell me, okay, I'm an athlete, or I'm a coach, or I'm a scientist, or this and that, they identify themselves with that label, with that title, and that title doesn't contain necessarily everything that is behind the scene with words, which is everything that I just spelled to you now: the consistency, the focus, pursuing with the right mindset and everything. So one way that I help them sometimes gain either confidence or gaining confidence actually is the word, is by asking them to identify the skills that they have been employing all this time while doing what they do, and how they can employ them in the future also to either do their career change, because sometimes athletes at some age they want to change they can't play that sport anymore, and that they gonna move on to something different, and they will be like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do now? I have been a footballer all my life. Yeah, but hold on a second. You've been a footballer, and what is the skills that you employed there? You have been consistent, regular, and focused, etc., etc. So hello, you can use all that for the next chapter. So I help them reframe who they are through that identity work that I have been spelling here with you, which is very interesting.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh, it sounds good.
Okay, a couple of questions more here. When you think of pressure, where does pressure come from?
Oh wow!
I know, I'm always hit with those words.
Pressure. All right. I would say it's not again, but it's you always have to approach something big on different levels, and I would say pressure. What I feel is these are one of the parts of one own's personality, as you said. Like there's a part in us who pressurize ourselves when it makes sense, but
so it comes from within or from outside?
I would say mostly within, but because I would say when you look at pressure from a we call it in neuroscience or pain science, they call it the biopsychosocial approach, like looking at the psychological approach, the view of it, and the social. Of course, pressure is kind of socialized, isn't it? Like when I see my athletes, they got injured and they have a specific money flow from sponsors, and they have a family, like you said. Maybe they are at the turning point of quitting their sports to become a businessman or do something else. And of course, I don't know the English word for it, but the expectations. Yeah, the expectations from outside will form or define the pressure from inside, or at least it's not isolated an entity. So you always have a biopsychosocial mix, a salad. And I would say that, of course, the childhood and your, how do you call it in the psychology, your boosters, your instigators or something, who are almost educated from your parents, maybe implicit or maybe explicit. So I would say you can have some buckets of pressurizers of your social environment, of being, you have to be perfect, you have to be on time, and things like this maybe are the main, I would say, facilitators of having pressure in your sport and in your business.
And then how do you keep it together when things get a little bit heated for you? If they ever get heated, what is the strategies that you employ to say, let's say, feel better or even avoid those heated situations?
I would say the first aid kit would be going for a run or having just doing some sports, but being a little bit more sustainable. I would say what I do with my athletes, for example, when it comes to pain, because pain science is educating at the moment a lot into the field of biopsychosocial approaches, and you can't just explain pain with the physiological part of it only. So it's very hard to isolate it. And there are a lot of very interesting approaches to, I would even translate these approaches to pressure and to my approach of managing it. It's kind of I would say, a reflection exercise to have a look on your, we call it the stress bucket. I don't know if you know this analogy, but you have a bucket where all the biological stuff, psychological stuff, and your social stuff are coming in, and it doesn't really matter if it's at the moment a lot of biology stuff which is going on, like your knee hurts. So there's a reflection exercise which is used in the pain science as well, the pain area, which is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. You just do a list of things which are good right now and which are bad right now, and just to reflect on these things, like, okay, is everything good at home? Does it work? Where does the pressure come from? Where does the stress come from? Is it maybe the weekend and maybe a seminar which doesn't work right now? And so just being sensible about these things helped me to re-evaluate, or like you said, to reframe my situation, to see, all right, there are a lot of good things. What's the problem right now? And these things are all coming together in a bucket, and I don't have to understand this black box of being of this complex system, but still it's always, or for me, it's easier to see the problems. It depends, I think, on your personality, but it's harder to think about the time when everything went well. Isn't it? Like when you have problems, it's a hard time, but when everything is nice, you have to reflect on it a little bit more. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds a lot like a little bit of the gratitude work that I do with my clients when they going through tough periods. I'll also ask them to look at the positive things that are happening, but also reflect on the negative things, but see the positive outcome from them. Now, in pain, nice. I guess it's a little bit different in pain, physical pain. There's no necessarily positive outcome from having a physical pain, but let's say for someone who lost a game or something like that, he would feel obviously some emotional pain, and then I would say, okay, this is a fact. So what is the positive outcome that can come from that? Which means it's just a fancy word to say what is the feedback, which means what is it that you can improve and how would you improve it. So it's a lot of questions, asking questions around that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, sounds like it. Exactly. And I would even say that in pain, you can still, of course, when it's pathological pain, it's hard, but still to reframe pain is one of the, for example, the main missions of all the pain science educators right now. They say, well, pain is not an indicator of, not an perfect indicator of tissue damage, but what pain is a protective mechanism. So you can reframe a little bit, of course, the pain for, as you said, as a feedback, and then you have to think about the feedback and why your body is producing pain right now. So it's almost the same, I would say. Yeah, it's interesting. You can
very interesting.
Transfer it to a lot of funny areas.
Okay. The last tricky question, okay, if you don't mind.
Okay.
What are you after when you work with people like that? So it's all about helping them improve or get rid of pain or getting better at something, right? Like, but do you have a philosophy? Do you have a why? Do you have a, let's say, a purpose? Have you been thinking about something like that? And don't worry if it doesn't come right now, but like you can just try to articulate something that also, go ahead.
Okay, I would say you mean like my main mission when it comes to training, yeah?
Mission or philosophy for life, like, because it could be overlapping, you know. Okay.
I would say, like you said, get rid of pain. I would just say that my main goal, my long-term goal is to get rid of me. So as a trainer, I would always think about when I approach an athlete or an athlete approach me, I always focus on autonomy. So it's really, for me, again, there are a lot of principles out there, but there's one principle which works almost every time, is the SAT principle, or the specific adaptation on imposed demand. So we are just getting better at what we are doing exactly in this area, what we are training for. And I'm a very big fan of thinking about, all right, my athlete will not have me in 3 years when he's on the water or in the snow. So he shouldn't be attached to a coach or a trainer to work, to function. So it's even maybe a life philosophy. So it's a different approach of thinking about, okay, I get an athlete and I will work with him a long time, or from the first session, I'm trying to get rid of the possibility of becoming attached to a coach or a trainer. So sometimes, of course, they need, especially after an injury, it's hard to me, of course, but there's a big fan of autonomy, and even say that's a part of a philosophy of mine. Yeah.
Excellent. I like this happy ending somehow. A very good one. Very good one.
Cool.
How long do you usually work with your athletes?
I would say it's more of an off and on thing that.
Is it like program based, like 3 months, 6 months kind of thing, or more like you just call me whenever you feel something?
Yeah, I would go for the latter, but as I said, I program very in the microcycle, so just a few weeks, because I know that lifestyle is always coming in between. But I have an athlete who is working with me for now, I think 3 or 3.5 years. After an ACL injury, and the autonomy part is going that we started with 2 or 3 sessions a week, and now it's maybe 1 session in a month, and the rest is remote programming. And he knows what to do. He knows a warm up. He knows when he knows what to do when his knee is in pain again, and so I would say this would be the average. It depends, of course, on the injury and the problems they have, but I try to change the relationship very quickly to remote control, or not control is a bad word, but remote training, and saying, okay, when something is coming up, I have some nutritionists in my team, or in my community, I would even say. So there are a lot of people who can help you, but when you feel fine, that's okay, and keep going. And I would say,
sense,
yeah, it depends mainly, but I try to, detach as quick as possible.
Okay, that's good. Right, we come into an end to this very interesting conversation here, Patrick. And I'm just going to ask you if you have links that you would like to share with the audience. Where can they find you, and how they can contact you? If you can just spell it, and then after I will put it on the show notes.
Yeah, sure. As you said, the webpage is fortheathlete.com with dashes in between, so for-the-athlete.com. You can look for the main name is Out of the Box. When you search it in Facebook, you will see, or you will find something. I'm very bad in Instagram. We come back to the topic of consistency. Mm-hmm. That's one of my issues right now. But I would say the homepage is the best approach to get in contact with me. Yeah.
Very well, very well. Well, thank you very much for making time for our call and scheduling it a little bit ahead like that, and being patient
All right.
for me to come back from my vacation. It was really nice talking to you.
Oh, thanks, Dris. It was very nice talking to you as well. Thanks.